Hello again, everybody. My name is Dale DuFay, and I'm going to do this video. I haven't done one in quite a while, and I apologize about that. I've been ever since I've been actually I shouldn't say following. I've been following David Icke for many years, but I'm finally convinced that what he says is accurate for the most part, and that being in a nutshell that we all live in a elaborate simulation. And after reading this book, The Dream, and I can't wait till the new one comes out. It's called The Reveal. It's common sense. It's like, well, duh, everything's simulated. Not the way we understand it, but obviously very elaborate. And the Mandela Effect vindicates that because it shows that there's multiple realities that we're in, that we've always been in, that we are quantum entangled with. Now, I've always been trying to get a hold of David Icke and let him know what those of us that are experiencing the Mandela Effect are starting to realize, that there are obviously other, who knows how many realities that we're interlocked with on a quantum level. And on some of these realities, the Earth is a super Earth. The one I recall was at least 4 times bigger than this Earth, and had a continent on the North Pole called Antarctica. It was so large, and all the great continents on the Earth are much larger than they are in this reality. So that being said, it would make a lot of sense that after President Biden went through some 15 time zones and around the world at least a couple times in the last few weeks, before the debate anyway, that he would have problems getting back in sync. And it was very apparent during the debate, wouldn't you agree? And he even used the excuse that he crossed all these time zones and went around the Earth a couple of times. Now, I know that a lot of you, or some of you, think the Earth is flat, and I can understand why you would, especially this being a simulation. It would make sense. But even in the simulation, it is a globe. It would make more sense. At least that's what I believe. And if you believe the Earth is flat, that's fine. Everybody's got their own opinion, and I can respect that. And again, the fact that we are in a simulation, I could see why people would think the Earth is flat. But it is a globe. That's the way I see it. And there are multiple Earths within the Milky Way galaxy, and some being super Earths, I call them, and this being a dwarf Earth. And I recall during, when shifting was happening regularly, I remember being on a mid-size Earth as well. So the Earths do vary in size throughout the Milky Way galaxy, and we are in most of those realities. So is President Biden. And so every replica version of itself was making that same trips, to the summits and whatnot, all across the globe. So some of those, flights he made and trips he's made and places he's attended wouldn't be at the exact same time in every reality, because the time is calibrated on the size of the Earth. So, I calculated that this Earth is at least 50% faster in time. That's why things seem so, different here, as far as not as detailed and things like that. So he did travel in all the realities. So it would take a long time. I mean, even crossing 2 time zones, or 3, say if you went across the country of the United States, there's 3 time zones. That's bad enough. It takes sometimes several days to get your act back together and be back in sync. Because I've done videos about this. If you traveled from New York to, say, Los Angeles, in this reality, it's only 2,500 miles. I remember it being 3,500 miles. So you're talking a 1,000-mile difference. So that explains the jet lag. That's what's so neat about it. Why we get jet lag. Nobody understands why, because nobody realizes we have multiple realities that we are in and connected on a quantum level. And so naturally, we have life going on super Earths and dwarf Earths. So, like if you drove this distance, it's a lot slower. But when you go great distances at a short period of time, say 500 miles an hour, then you notice the difference. It takes, because like say if we went from New York to LA or LA to New York, some, the replica versions of ourselves in these realities where the Earth is a dwarf, we'd be the first ones to get to the destination, while other replica versions of ourselves sharing, the same life basically in different realities, it's going to take a lot longer because the Earth is so much larger. So you're not going to be into sync. Every replica version of yourself won't be in synchronization until they're all settled into the hotel and everything gets back to kind of normal. So that explains the jet lag. So I think we should forgive President Biden for his poor performance at the debate for that very reason alone. Even though I did look into some articles where he, where he claims that, he was actually using the time zones and the jet lag as an excuse. But I was reading that some of them were actually, he had a whole week to rest at Camp David. So, he did have time to reacclimate, but the thing is that he probably needed, well, it was obvious he needed more time. So that just goes, that's why I wanted you to look at that video. It makes so much sense. And then, it confirms in my mind that we are indeed in a simulation, because it would take an elaborate simulation like, say, we are in, would have to be on a quantum level. So that makes a lot of sense. It confirms David Icke's beliefs that he's been talking about for decades. Again, I didn't really believe everything he said, but now I do. So I recommend that all of you check him out. He's been banned on many platforms, but I watch him on BitChute. Plus, he's got his own channel called Iconic. And, of course, the books and everything. But the guy is right. I wish I could tell him about this multiple realities and this quantum entanglement involvement, because it literally, confirms that he's correct. This is nothing but a big, giant simulation. The entire Milky Way galaxy is. And we're, I don't know if the galaxies are parallel per se, but I do know that there are many, many, many realities in the Milky Way, because the location of the Milky Way galaxy of the solar system with the Earth in it that I recall, the super Earth, was on the very, very outer reaches of the galaxy. And in this reality, we're not even 25,000 light years from the galactic center. Basically, we're separated by thousands of light years. Even maybe perhaps are some realities that are even as little as 4 or 5 light years away, which still make it impossible for us to run into each other. But it is interesting that they're going to be sending out probes to some of these exoplanets and seeing what's going on. And they're going to be doing the same thing. So basically, some probes from those realities will wind up in this reality, and they'll just assume that the probe came back. Same is true if you actually were able to send people that great distance in a lifetime or whatnot. They too would be seeming like they're returning home, but they would find themselves in a different reality, much like we are, those of us that are infected with the Mandela Effect and what we're experiencing. But it'd be more like a physical. So there's really no way we could ever bump into each other. But yeah, there's another important point to bring out is that with this assassination attempt with the former President Trump. Now, in some realities, it's quite possible that bullet might have hit him right in the temple, because if you look at where the bullet hit him in his right ear, it's very close to the temple. So in some realities, it's very possible, even though everything is virtually identical in every reality, there's going to be variations and differences, which we all experience. So when it comes to a bullet, there's no way that could, could have grazed his ear in every single reality. Perhaps some realities it totally missed him. Some realities, perhaps it you know hit him and killed him. So we just don't know. We know that's true because look at Nelson Mandela. In some realities, he was killed in prison, whereas in other realities, he ascended as president of South Africa after his release. So it shows that there's even some of us may not exist in every single reality. Something unforeseen circumstance may have occurred where you survived in some realities and not in others. And that same could be true with Donald Trump. So again, this is very important information. If we just look at it all and understand that this is a simulation, and oh, by the way, it's if you follow David Icke, it's non-human entities that are running the show behind the shadows. And they're evil, and it's quite obvious because even since when I was a kid, I used to think that Earth was a living hell. I always tried to have respect for Earth, and think it was great, but it's really not. It's basically a trap, a elaborate trap that our souls are in, and our bodies are just basically, what do they call it? Basically, like a receptacle to be able to see this very small, skinny, narrow spectrum of reality. So we're all like stuck on this earth until we actually pass on and hopefully not get reincarnated. But I think once you have the knowledge of what's going on, that reincarnation thing comes to an end on a personal level. I know when I get up there again, I'm going to tell them, I'm no way in hell am I going back to that shithole. The shithole being this earth here. And but it's the Mandela Effect's revealing a lot of things. It's actually vindicating what David Icke has been talking about for decades. So I personally do believe. I always believed in creation and being in a simulation and being basically a character in a simulation makes a lot of sense. It's because we were created. But how long have we been being reincarnated is a whole nother story. I mean, supposedly they tell you up there that we have to, up there meaning the astral, that we have to go back to learn more lessons and everything. But they send us back with this, brand new clean slate and no memory of our previous existence whatsoever, most of us anyway. What good is that? Basically, they're just recycling us and keeping us in the trap. But anyway, that does explain a lot of things with what's been going on. I just wanted to bring up the good example of, Biden's horrible performance. And I do believe he does have, his excuse of going over many time zones is a very good one. Again, nobody has any explanation as to why we have jet lag, but this quantum entanglement and the fact that we are on super Earths, mid-size Earths, dwarf Earths, all throughout the galaxy would make a lot of sense. It would take forever to get, you're back into sync with all your other replica versions of yourself throughout the galaxy on these different size Earths if you were crossing multiple time zones in a short period of time. In fact, he's probably just now really getting over all that and getting back in sync. And especially when you're, elderly and things like that, it's got to be even harder. So I think we should give Biden the benefit of the doubt. And then also Donald Trump. I feel bad that, that somebody tried to kill him. Again, in some realities, he may be dead or wounded or, totally missed a bullet. It's interesting when you think about it. But that's going to cause even more havoc in this political scene and everything. As you know, this channel doesn't really get political at all, but this is a good example of what we're going through and what we all are going through and what we're witnessing. I mean, it's really something. What happened there in Pennsylvania. I guess it was just above Pittsburgh here, just north there of Pittsburgh. But that's amazing that happened. And again, first thing I thought of is, wow, I wonder if some realities he perished or was actually hit. And that's very, very likely. Yeah, so, in those realities, they're going to be without a Republican nominee, so it's going to, so that's going to create havoc in the realities where he survived, and it's going to be the Republican nominee. So that could be very interesting to see what's going on. And if you do follow David Icke, he's saying that astral realm, the spirit realm, the one we can't see, is very chaotic, and it's starting to blend in with our reality, and we can see it happening right before our eyes. So keep that in mind. I recommend you read his David Icke's books. They're fantastic. And I, it makes a lot of sense. Again, I wish I can talk to him about that, because in none of his books he mentions anything about quantum entanglement with other realities throughout the galaxy. But so I would love to talk to him about that, because I know for a fact that I was on an Earth. Well, I still am. It's just another portion of my soul in that replica version of myself where this portion of my soul originated from. That is a super Earth there, some 30,000 light years from here, or more. I mean, it's incredible. Or I haven't looked lately where our location is in this reality, but I'm doing this video in every single reality, so it's interesting. I'm probably the replica version of myself, or that this portion of my soul originated from, has another portion of my soul in it that perhaps came from a dwarf Earth, and they're saying exactly the same thing but in different terms. Every version of myself doing this video. So anyway, keep that in thought, in consideration, and it does make a lot of sense. It's like everything we're seeing, vindicates what David Icke's been saying and what I've been saying for several years now, that we are, it's in the same dimension, in a galactic scale, light years away, and separating each reality, but yet quantumly entangled, because science is proving that quantum entanglement, distance, doesn't matter whatsoever. So keep that in mind. I'm going to try and do more videos on this Mandela Effect channel, because a lot of you are asking for it, and I love talking about it. But after studying David Icke, or concluding that he is correct in almost everything he says, kind of outdoes what I'm talking about. So I kind of got, I don't want to, it's hard to describe what happened, but I just kind of took a back seat to what I've been talking about. But I want to get back into it, because I do love talking about it, and there's nobody around nearby, or how do you tell somebody that they live in multiple realities and they're quantumly entangled to other replica versions of yourselves? In fact, I liken it to a roll of film, and that each frame in the film represents an individual reality, and the projector is basically, running our life fluently throughout each reality. And we wouldn't exist if it wasn't like that. The simulation wouldn't exist without the quantum entanglement. So it's interesting, to look at both things, what David Icke's talking about and then what I'm talking about. They kind of intertwine. But his is way more interesting, because he is a very, very devoted researcher. Where I just, I can only come to conclusions. I can't prove anything I'm talking about whatsoever. All we have is our memories. I know for sure I was on a super Earth, or still am, but this portion of my soul is now in this replica version of myself that has always existed. So it's so interesting. We're in interesting times. There's a lot of revelations going on, and hopefully that helps topple the house of cards that non-human entity that's operating and behind the shadows and manipulating and orchestrating this life. They apparently feed off of our misery. That's why everything's so inverted and backwards, and that's why there's so many people suffering. I mean, I know many of you are in the same boat I am. Living week to week. In fact, I just for a month the insurance took my caregiving. They pay me to take care of Mary, and they took that away for a whole month, and that's just unbelievable. It's going to take forever to get caught up after that. But it's back in, and everything, and it's just I don't know. These things are meant to happen. We are meant to struggle because they feed off of our misery. What is it? The ancient people kind of knew about this as well. They called it a bad replica. Bad simulation is a bad copy of a real simulation that is meant to be, perhaps. But this one is just all messed up, and it's getting worse. And people are starting to wake up and understand what's going on. So they're trying harder than ever to make everything as chaotic as possible. So anyway, I thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a good weekend, and hopefully this political situation will simmer down. I doubt it. I think things are going to get worse than better, not just in the political sense, but everywhere. It seems like it is, and it's not going to get any better. I guess their goal is to also have us live in a dystopia. So they don't want, they just basically, the more control they have over us, the better. So hopefully that something will happen in the meantime. So everybody hang in there, and I'll talk at you later. Love you.